So welcome back to United TV, and today we've got a special guest representing Newcastle. So all the stories that we've talked about for probably weeks now about Lewis Hall, Tonali, why are Barcelona buying Gordon when they could buy Rashford from us? All these kind of stories we've been talking about. Do Newcastle need to sell these players? Do Newcastle need to raise money? Does Lewis Hall want to leave? I don't know. But I know a man that probably does know, or probably has better answers than I can give you guys. But welcome, Philip, to the channel from ToonTacticsTv. Excellent Newcastle channel. How are you doing tonight?
I'm amazing. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm having a really always a privilege to talk to you, whether on my channel or on your channel. Really looking forward to talking to yourself, to the chat. Hope you guys are blessed, and yeah, looking forward to the football conversation today.
So just first, kind of the starting point, how are you feeling about Newcastle in terms of like your approach to the window? Because I think you're kind of in the situation that we had last season where it's not been the greatest season. There's, from our point of view, we don't know whether players want to leave Newcastle now or it's just a bit of media hype from a Man United perspective that these players might want to come to us. I mean, how are you thinking it's going to go at the moment?
Oh, yeah, you made some really good points. I think last year, I think we've already made improvements in terms of how we're going to approach the window compared to last year. So last year, we didn't our director of sporting director left literally 24 hours before the window started, and that totally threw everything out the window for us. Eddie Howe was called back from his holiday. He was actually on holiday with his family. He was called back from his holiday, had to scratch up a team together to try and get the transfer window, to try and kind of get us through the transfer window. So everything was very, very active. And so that's why, for those that remember, Newcastle had one of the most like topsy-turvy, media highlighted, maybe embarrassing transfer windows, rejections after rejections, the Isak saga. Isak literally went missing. We had to send out bounty hunters to look for him. And
it seemed to be a bit crazy, didn't it? You like, but from my point of view, it's the first time a window had actually gone quite well for Man United, and we got some good players in. It looked like Newcastle. I was thinking, do you think Newcastle learned from that? And when you're looking at some of these players, because my guess was going to be that if Tonali leaves or Gordon leaves, like Gordon's gone early, do you think you're going to be mindful of that and actually try and get deals done a bit quicker? If a player wants to leave, for example.
Absolutely. I think we have learned from it. We actually have a sporting director now and a CEO. Eddie Howe told the PIF last year, Isak wants to go in July, and they didn't listen to him. This year we listened, and Gordon was sold before June the 1st. So kind of in relation to our kind of people asking maybe about our finances are in very, very good order. We did have to, like, at the beginning, sell a stadium to ourselves, do all that funny stuff. But you also have to remember we're not in Europe, so we've got 85% on SCR rather than 70%. Plus, selling Gordon before the June the 1st again boosts it even more. Like, we can literally just from the Gordon sale, we can probably make about 3 to 4 major signings just from the Gordon sale. And so, yeah, we're in a good position in terms of what we want to do. We've got financial headroom. We've got our sporting director. We're making sales early, really good sales early as well. We've even got a sell-on clause on Gordon as well. So in terms of, identifying players has never been an issue for us. We've been very good at that. It's been about executing deals. And in terms of selling and getting things over the line, I think we're in good shape for this season.
How do you think regarding, like, because from Manchester United perspective, we need to buy midfielders. We've been talking about Tonali all summer. We're now moving, like, for Fernandes. I think we're trying to do the easy deals first. It seems like we got Edison done because it's quite a straightforward deal. We've got, if we get Fernandes done again, that might be because West Ham got relegated. They want to sell some players to raise money, it seems. And I think the most difficult deals for Manchester United is going to be, like, Anderson, Tchouameni. These seem unlikely. Tonali seems quite expensive. And then recently, over the last couple of weeks, I keep seeing all these stories about Lewis Hall. And the difficulty I've got is because of the, like, Man United fans, we're looking at our situation as a club thinking, well, if we could get a left back in, 21 years old, really promising player. And then there's lots of stories being put out here in terms of, say, Manchester United are pretty serious about looking for a left back. That is for sure. What sort of estimation do you think in terms of price? Because I think it's going to be at least 50, I think, to start with. I don't know how much would be a valuation, but clearly, I think what you're right is that Newcastle don't need to sell. Like, if they're going to be selling players, it's only going to be because the player wants to leave. That's kind of what I'm assuming. But also, Newcastle are going to demand a sensible transfer fee. I think has Lewis Hall got another few years on his contract at least, so it's there's nothing imminent with that situation.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. I think I'll take it back a little bit of the Lewis Hall one to kind of explain what Newcastle's attitude towards it is. So you remember the 6-8 weeks ago when we had the whole story of Tonali and Bruno. Tonali and Bruno could both go to Man United even, or Man United are interested in both, or and things of that nature. And so, and I know if people noticed what Newcastle's attitude was, which was totally different to last year. Newcastle never denied them. They never said that no way, we're never selling them. The attitude from Newcastle was, yeah, like if you guys want to go, you can go, but only one of you can go because you can't sell all of you. So that attitude was open. So they said, speak to Man United or speak to that club, sort out whatever contracts or wages you want to have. Let them know what our valuation of you is, and whichever club, potential buying club, comes to us first with our valuation, we will sell that player. And nothing happened from that. From Bruno, for instance, Bruno Guimaraes' perspective, people said he was too old for the price. Tonali remains outstanding. So bringing it back to kind of Lewis Hall, I think if Newcastle have offered him a new contract, he hasn't signed it yet. It's the similar situation for Lewis Hall as it would be for Bruno and Tonali. So Tino Livramento, City, Arsenal, I think Arsenal a bit in front, have been keen to get him. And I think from my perspective, he's a little bit ahead of the queue. But what you will get though is especially intermediaries and agents from our players' camps kind of making the most noise to try and rustle up business. It's not saying that it's that your clubs can't get them, but they're trying to let clubs know that they're open and they're trying to shout louder than the other player, essentially. So I think if Man United were to move to Lewis Hall, they'll have to move quickly and decisively, quicker than I think Arsenal after Tino, than Arsenal, for instance. So because we're not going to let both of them go essentially. And in terms of
to be honest, that makes a lot of sense, because I was thinking along the same sort of lines, that you're happy for players to go if the valuation's met, but obviously you've got to be realistic. You can't let too many good players go in one window. You've got to be mindful of how many deals you can do to get players back in. I think with this one, Manchester United are quite serious, and it does seem to be that I think what's difficult for a lot of fans to probably get their head around is that the people making decisions at Manchester United now are different from about 18 months to maybe 18 months is the first time where everybody was in place in terms of like who's going to be making the decisions, and things are quicker. So last transfer window was probably the first time that they had enough preparation for a window with Barada, Wilcox, etc., and everybody else in charge. And we did move reasonably decisively. We were quite slow, but we had a lot of financial constraints to deal with at that time. So we were basically getting Embuemo done very slowly because we're trying to negotiate payment structure, etc., and trying to do that. I think now Manchester United have got financially in a better position. We got Champions League money again. I think we are quite decisive, but a lot of it's going to be down to, I think what we're doing is we're discussing lots of things over a time period of like months, and then when we think players are interested in joining Man United, which it was the case of Ederson, it seems to be the case with MATEUS FERNANDES. He's very keen to join Manchester United, it appears. And United are in a position where we can offer a lot of these players first team football as well, Champions League football. We couldn't do that last season, and I think United are quite serious. I think there might be for Lewis Hall. I think a lot of fans would be very keen to try and get him. I did see a question in the chat that maybe you could say in terms of. I think Burns been talked about because I think he was replacing Hall towards the end of the season. So I think people are saying for you, do you have like some players where I know this will be like maybe unique to your opinion, but in terms of like Lewis Hall or Tonali, Livramento? Is there any players there where you think, I really hope these players don't leave the club, or are you kind of open to players leaving and hope recruitment then also brings in relatively good quality cover or replacements for them?
Yeah, great question. I didn't see the comment there. So you said there was a
I
question
so
that
I
come
think I
down.
was
I
saying if
cannot.
so I kind of expanded the question a little bit. So Mickey said, what difference do you see between Hall and Byrne? Who would you miss more? And so in terms of like those
Okay.
specific players, who do you hope doesn't leave? I think is my question.
Right. Okay. Well, I hope none of them leave. I'll be honest with you guys. Like, I know I'm being fairly kind of open about players leaving. I don't want to give the impression like I don't care if it's who Hall or Tonali. I don't want none of them to leave. To be fair with you, I've learned though, especially, and I think hopefully some Newcastle fans learn is that um, and I've been doing this for a while now on my channel and preparing ourselves for this window. We knew that players would leave. We just wanted to make sure that our infrastructure behind the scenes, the things I've told you guys before, having a sporting director, having a CEO, um, we've got now our decision making process is gone from Saudi to now to Newcastle, so we can get deals over the line quicker. I think that's the important part. So in terms of players, I don't want to go. I don't want. I'll be honest. I don't want any of them to leave. But there's also a bit of reality in terms of what our situation is. I think if these players do leave, we get the best price, i.e., Gordon, and we get a replacement in, which is what Newcastle are working right now on. So yeah, I hope that answers the questions, but I don't want any of them to leave. I would prefer a situation where we can give them the wages that they want and then add to them to more quality. But unfortunately, with the way financial situation is, we can't do that.
I know it's really tricky, isn't it? So I look at it from my point of view, and I think with Manchester United, the difference has been that we've maybe bought players that then haven't been good enough, so we've had to replace them. And
Mm,
it's the same sort of problem. Or we bought players that are a bit too old and then had to replace them. So it feels like we've never really had a sensible plan until maybe last year. Like last year's transfer window in the summer, I think we got a proper goalkeeper in, we got good quality attacking players, and these are players now that we can go next year on like a year on and go right. The goalkeeper, we got a good goalkeeper. We still got the good attacking players, etc. So I think it puts us on like a good foundation. And maybe one of the questions in the comments as well was to do with Tonali. And
mhm,
what do you think is the genuine valuation? Because I've seen anything from 80 million to 100 million in terms
mm,
of that. I think if it's 100 million, I I actually don't think Man United will pay that amount because
mhm,
and it's not because he's not a good player. I think Manchester
mm,
United have got a relatively big budget, but I think we're trying to do a lot of things. So I think three midfielders probably coming in, and I think what they're looking at, and this is what I've been reading recently, and to be honest, I quite like this idea that I think we're looking at trying to construct a team rather than thinking like we definitely need to get this one player, we definitely need to get that player. We're looking at what works as a team. So maybe the players will be slightly cheaper, and I think it might be a better way of getting a left back as well, and maybe a left winger as well. So how much do you reckon for Tonali, just in terms of like realistic price? Because Man United fans will say one thing, you might have a bit more knowledge on that one.
I think it's my only question to that is to compare to whom. So it's what the market value is. I personally would watch what do City end up paying for Elliot Anderson. I think that's going to give a good indicator as to what Tonali is. Just remember, Elliot Anderson was at Newcastle and he couldn't get into the team because of Tonali. So I think Newcastle will pay attention to that valuation. Now, the latest we heard from Forest is 120 million, and that's insane. He's good. He's not that good. But Forest are in a position also where, thankfully for them, Elliot Anderson isn't pushing for a move. Obviously, he would like to go, but he's not. He's not going to do an Isak. So it looks like they're moving on. So I would have used that as a reference in terms of
It's tricky, isn't it? Because I was thinking the
going
same thing
forward.
that Elliot Anderson has said that he wants to move after the World Cup. And I think Elliot Anderson, he might know where his preference is, but I think Elliot Anderson and Nottingham Forest, they both benefit from a high transfer fee. So because that's the
Mhm.
case, that he's in no hurry. I mean, his value is not going to go down in the World Cup. I'd imagine it's not going to go up from 120. That's obviously a crazy price tag. But I was thinking the same sort of thing. Do you remember last year where it felt a bit like if you didn't get deals done early in the transfer window, the price was like going up and up and up. And I was watching Man United
Yes.
thinking, just get Mbeumo done. Like what seems like a good price one week, then 2 weeks' time can seem like a bargain price because things were going a bit crazy. And I did kind of reference
Yeah.
Newcastle because I think you paid quite a lot of money for Wissa. And I remember at the time
Yes.
there was definitely some suggestion that we had to get Mbeumo done because Brentford wouldn't sell Wissa. And I think what it meant was they would charge a high price. So it's difficult. I think Man United, if we want to get Tonali done, we have to pay quite a lot of money now, or we have to kind of gamble. And to be honest, I don't know what happens if we wait. I think we're going to be getting the deals we can do to start with. And I think Manchester United are going to, like almost like Newcastle, wait and see what happens regarding Elliot Anderson or
Yeah.
possibly other
And
moves.
we have to also remember with Tonali, Tonali signed a new contract this year. So he's on a very, very strong contract. I know people will say player power, and yes, Newcastle witnessed player power to its fullest. But how many times are you going to experience that in the summer? And I think you have to also remember that, well, I hope Tonali remembers also who was there for him when he wasn't on his 1 year ban. It was Newcastle United who raised them from the bottom of the bottom. It was Newcastle United. When he was played his final game for Newcastle before he started his ban, our fans clapped him off the pitch and wished him nothing but good things. And we waited anxiously for his return. So he knows he's well loved and well respected. The worst thing he can do now is turn around and spit in our face and do an Isak after all of that. So he's fairly relaxed. Well, I don't know if he's fairly relaxed, but he'll be in a conundrum if he tries to pull that. I'm not saying that he won't, but I think it'll be almost bad. I think sign a new contract, and like you said, the best thing if Man United were to move for him is, and especially before the World Cup, is to meet whatever valuation is now. Because if you look at it from Newcastle's perspective, and I'll end it on this. Say, for instance, Newcastle sold Tonali for 70 million, yeah, and Anderson gets sold for 90 million after the World Cup. That's just bad business. Anderson, who's never played in the has he played for Champions League for us? I think he might have. Nah, he hasn't played in the Champions League for us. Like Tonali's done Champions League for us, and all those other things. He's Scudetto winner, captain of the Rossoneri, former captain of the Rossoneri, AC Milan, and we're settling him for £20 million more. So, yeah, I think from a Newcastle perspective, I think we're fairly relaxed where we're in a good space. It's not to say that Man United can't get him. Of course you can, but from a contract point of view, from a valuation point of view, you're unlikely to get a price less than Anderson's, for instance.
Yeah, I think that the owner of Forest, he makes some interesting decisions and some interesting statements over like recent. So I think when he put that out there, my initial reaction was I used to say maybe like a year ago, I really liked Anderson. He was maybe for me the top target because he does a lot of things well. I did like his energy. I like the way he can defend. I think his ball winning skills, just for Man United's midfield, I think it would be fantastic. And I think a lot of people look at Tonali, and to be honest, actually, when I speak to people regarding Tonali, a lot of people are more enthusiastic if they watched Tonali years ago in Italy. And I think a lot of people question whether we see the best version of Tonali in Newcastle. I don't know if you have thoughts on that one, because that's one suggestion that people look at him and go that maybe how he's playing in Newcastle. I think sometimes I don't know because I don't watch Newcastle as much, but a lot of people say they thought he was a better player at AC Milan, or maybe it showcased his attributes a bit more effectively.
Yeah, what is it that we're seeing in Italy? I don't know if you could. What were they seeing in AC Milan that they're not seeing in Newcastle?
One of the things I saw or heard is that a lot of people saying that they think he's amazing at screening the back four. If he's going to be doing that as a role, they think he's a good playmaker. He could be someone that could play multiple positions very well. And a lot of people think that, but this is what people have said about him at Newcastle, is they're wondering whether he's an elite football player or whether Bruno Guimaraes is actually, is it going to be that Bruno Guimaraes is the main guy in that team? And I think people then start thinking, is he going to be a good player at Man United? Can he step up? If there's because we're kind of going to be reliant on him for the experience he brings. We're going to be buying in players that, let's be honest, they're going to be younger. Matheus Fernandes is 21. We've got Mainu, who's 21, so he would have to be a bit of a leader. And I think a lot of people regard Bruno Guimaraes as like the leader of your team. So do you think he would have that sort of quality?
Yeah, he was captain of the Rossoneri, so that's the main reason, as the captain of AC Milan. So he definitely's got some leadership qualities. Obviously, what he's done off the field hasn't always been helpful. And
yeah, that's actually something that, sorry to interrupt, but a lot of people
yeah,
do talk about the gambling thing. And I've got another question as well. A couple of people have asked this question. Do you have a sell-on percentage of Anderson? Because if you did, that I'm sure we would have heard about it, but I don't know if you do have that.
not as far as I'm aware. Not as far as you have to remember, when we sold Anderson, we were desperate. We were like a day or 272 hours away from huge, not even just fines. If it was just fines, we would have paid it, from points deductions and everything like that. So yeah, there wasn't any selling clause on Addison or Minte, both players that we could deal with right now. But just on Tonali. So Tonali isn't our playmaker. Bruno is. Bruno is our 6 in our 8, and we play him more in the 8 now because he's more advanced. I think there's a misconception that Tonali is a 6. He's more of an 8. If you're looking for a 6 that's press resistant, has a good passing range, that's not Tonali. Tonali is the physical, athletic player. He's obviously good at winning the ball. He's good at covering ground. The problem is he's not as positionally aware. So when he goes to track people down, he's not always aware of the space that he leaves behind. That's something that can be worked on, but just for you to be aware of that. Sometimes it's why Sean Longstaff was preferred for that reason. People couldn't believe we played Sean Longstaff, but Sean Longstaff, there's Tonali in many aspects is better than Sean Longstaff. Don't get me wrong, right? But Sean Longstaff has positional awareness a little bit more than Tonali did. So that was the main reason. So, but I would, if I was if I was Man United fan, I would ask myself, what's in my team right now? What does Man United need? And it's about profiles and partnerships. Would Tonali play better next to Kobe Mainoo? Kobe Mainoo is more of a profile of a Bruno Guimaraes. So obviously ball to feet, press resistant, can play back to goal, but maybe can't cover the ground that a Tonali can. So in that sense, the partnership works really well. Sometimes we do play Tonali as a 6 who plays in between between the 2 centre backs, so it forms a back 3. Or sometimes either on the left side or the right side to form a back 3 when we're kind of protecting the counter press. He's really, really good at that. And if that's something that Man United are looking to do, then it'll work that way. But I wouldn't see him, if someone sees him as a deep line playmaker or the person that's going to spray passes around or play back to goal or be press resistant, he's good, but he's not Bruno or Kobe Mainoo good. He's probably better in the 8. So I think, would he be decent as a Casemiro replacement? Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if he's got the same kind of level of covering the spacing, kind of being aware of the space he leaves behind as a Casemiro does. So that would be the only thing I would say about that. But in terms of, for us, when we play him, Bruno, and Joe Linton together, it's absolutely phenomenal about that midfield there.
Yeah, no, you got a really good midfield generally. I was going to say, interesting your comments about Mainoo. Do you think, where would you say Mainoo's best position is? Because I think you made a good comment that Mainoo's really good for me, like in terms of if he's in the front of the back 4, he makes really good decisions. He never panics. He's resistant to press, like you said. He doesn't have the range of passing that you'd maybe, that's something he can develop. But I think he is very positionally aware. He is disciplined. And I think he's one of these players that probably goes under the radar a little bit. I do like him, but I know a lot of fans are, he's not, it's not as exciting enough for some people. But I think he's very competent. Also, he's only 21, and I think in terms of this one, the thing that Tonali would offer is kind of a bit similar to some of the other players we looked at in the past, like a Belieber a year ago, where he could carry the ball, he could like have a lot more energy. And I think we've already bought that player really, I suppose, in Edison, who is going to be somebody that's going to be more box to box, is decent on the ball, but it's much better than Ugarte. I actually think that Man United might be looking to try and do something different next year, and that's why too many has definitely been linked, and I saw this question as well, and saying too many is the number 6 we need, but too many is at Real Madrid, and too many is happy at Real Madrid, and I just don't see how. I read a story earlier today, and it said that Man United are very heavily linked to MATEUS Fernandes, and apparently, Jose Mourinho, who's now just moved to Real Madrid, he was quoted as saying that if too many leaves, and to be honest, I think too many is 99% a Real Madrid player, but if something happens, I'll say fair enough. I didn't see it happening. I just don't see how a player leaves Real Madrid. That's what I'm saying in his prime. But they would look at MATEUS Fernandes. Do you have any, as a neutral fan, like tonight, as a Newcastle fan, how do you rate MATEUS Fernandes, or do you look at him as a potentially like quality player? Because we're looking like our midfield is pretty much non-existent at the moment. We got Mainu, we're probably going to sell Ugarte, and so we've got no one else. So do you think that like Tonali would work? You think Tonali would work with Mainu? How do you see Man United's rebuild taking shape? Because like you said, it's about profiles. Newcastle have a balanced midfield, but if we're looking at potentially, say, too many Fernandes, Tonali, if you're a Man United fan, who would you want us to get in?
First of all, Mateus Fernandes, I did a scouting profile on him last summer, and I think he's incredible. He could be your best signing of the window. He is the younger version of Bruno Guimaraes. That's how I see him. So it's very interesting that you've gone for Mateus Fernandes. I almost think that maybe Edison's your cheaper version of Tonali in that sense as well. He can play in the. He's a 6 by nature. Can play in the 8, but he's probably your 6. I would almost. Well, it depends how you want to do it. You could have Kobe Mainoo and Mateus Fernandes in the pivot. Are you going to play 4-2-3-1? How are you going to play?
So I'd imagine, like a lot of people thinking we're going to play 4-2-3-1, but I'm just wondering whether we might change things a little bit next year. I know a lot of people are looking at our team from this season thinking we're going to do like for like, kind of, let's get another midfielder to replace Casemiro. I think we might play slightly differently. I don't know exactly if we're going to go to 4-3-3, but we might be looking at trying to potentially go down that route. And I'm wondering whether we're just going to get a lot of midfielders that give us options. But I'm interested in what you said regarding MATEUS Fernandes, because even though it's like a player that's probably not a massive name, like, too many is a massive name. You look at Elliot Anderson, very high profile as well. I think MATEUS Fernandes could be our best signing as well. Like, I think he's
yeah. Sorry, go on.
Like, I think he's a really good player. When I saw it, I literally don't see a downside. I think he's an incredible player. I think a lot of people look at West Ham and don't realize how good this guy is because West Ham have been struggling. But I think he could be a really good signing. And actually, it's about time Man United actually got a player that's this age that's this good, because we keep buying players past the best. I think this is when I first saw the story, the teams interested were Manchester United, Arsenal, and Paris Saint-Germain, and I was thinking we need to be quick because he's going to have some good offers on the table. I think we might be leading the race because according to a few sources, I think Manchester United are actually flying to London or flew to London today to basically speak to the agent. The only thing I think is going to be a question mark is I think West Ham want a big price, but I think Man United will be happy to pay it's going to be a record for a relegated team, but I think that's a bit unfair because he's just unlucky he played at West Ham. I think you can drop him into. I think MATEUS Fernandes could probably get into most first 11s in the Premier League like next season if you're or certainly in the squad of all the teams.
He's in your first 11. He will be in your first 11. He's magnificent. He's a number 6. He's the younger version of Bruno Guimaraes. I'm a little bit surprised that people look down on players that come from relegated squads. You have to remember, he played for Southampton and he played for West Ham, and he still gained a reputation as a high-quality operator because of his resilience and leadership. To play for a team that's consistently having to defend you as the midfielder are in charge of everything. You're in charge of the build-up play. You're in charge of making sure that you can be creative on the other end of the pitch. Then you're in charge of making sure the back four are getting screened. If you don't tick, the team don't tick. These are the type of players that Man United used to have all over their pitch, especially in the Ferguson days. Alex Ferguson will be looking at a player like that for his character in those type of pressures. You're not getting the player that's coming from, one of the bougie teams who's used to getting his things his way. What have been some of the criticisms that you've had on your players in recent years? When the chips are down, the players' heads drop. It's not how it was before. Our mentality isn't there. Well, guess what? You got Mr. Fernandes. You got you got a man that's seen it all. You couldn't get any lower than what he's experienced, and yet he still played. He still gained a credible reputation amongst teams that he got. He's incredible. Number 6, can play back to goal, can be creative, can also screen the back four, high intelligence. I don't know if he's gone to Brazil. If he didn't, he's unlucky. The fact that you made this move and other moves that you're making already lets me know, and there's something different in your recruitment team that's happening there. Why get Elliot Anderson for 100 million when you get Mateus Fernandes? Why buy a 28-year-old Bruno Gomes for 80 million when you get Mateus Fernandes? Yeah, 60 million people might think it's steep, but West Ham got him for 40 million. He's a Premier League proven player at 23, 24. You're not going to get, for the level that he's achieved and what he's done, you're going to be hard pressed to get a player of that level. There's a reason, like you said, that you'd have to believe me. There's a reason how you said PSG. Now, I don't know about you, but their midfield is pretty good. they know something about midfielders, right?
Yeah, PSG's recruitment has been like gold standard over the last couple of years. And I was going to say, I think that the evidence that we're moving different was when we signed Lamans as a goalkeeper. I mean, it's probably the cheapest goalkeeper that we were linked to over last summer. And
Yeah.
I must have covered about 10 stories with credible links for goalkeepers. And he was the cheapest one. And I think a lot of this Man United deals, this is why I was going to say regarding Tonali. Do you think Tonali might stay at Newcastle? Because Man United will look at it and go, okay, the question mark might be is, there was a question in the comments as well. I'll try and like sort of paraphrase it. But do you see, in terms of, like, say, for example, Lewis Hall has been talked about with Man United, Tonali has been talked about with Manchester United, Arsenal, etc. Who do you think Newcastle buy if those players leave the club? Like, if those two players leave, do you think you've got people in mind you want to go for, or do
Yes.
you think who would it be?
So for Tonali, because I have to put it in context. So Newcastle are looking to move on Willock, right? They're not looking to move on Tonali. I mentioned that because the replacement, when Newcastle talk about midfield replacements, in their mind, they're looking for Willock replacements. If Tonali goes, they're looking for their minds are a little bit different to that in terms of the replacement they're going to have. So whenever you hear midfielder linked to Newcastle, it's mainly for a replacement for Willock, and really they see Tonali as an opportunity. So, for instance, if Tonali was going to move, they were looking at Curtis Jones. Now, Curtis Jones, for instance, is going to go to Inter Milan. But if you look at the profile of player, a number 6 who's press resistant, who can play out from the back. If you look at some of the stats, he's very close to the likes of Rodri. I know people don't. I'm not saying before anybody kills me for this that Curtis Jones is as good as Rodri. But I'm saying that if you look at certain stats where Rodri is at, you have the likes of Curtis Jones being not too far in those categories in terms of playing the ball out from the back, press resistance, passing under pressure, all those type of stats, and very similar to your Mateus Fernandes's. So we're looking, and if you heard my earlier kind of criticisms, not criticisms about kind of Tonali, those are the type of things that Tonali isn't as good for instance, at doing. So that's what we're looking at. The other, the main replacement we're looking for is a player called Lamine Camara from Monaco, who again is a number 6, but can play number 8. Also creative as well. He's about 22 years old. Played now has got like 2-3 seasons, senior season under his belt, including Champions League, including winning the Africa Cup of Nations. So yeah, if we're able to get him, he changes the game for us. He really, really changes the game for us.
He's a player that people have been actually talking about for a while. Sebastian feel free to, again, like Danny B really likes Kamara. There's a lot of people that do like these players that say, yeah, Man United fans, we kind of like scout everybody and hope they re-sign them. So there's probably, if I said who should we sign, there's probably going to be about 50 people. Names will come up in the chat. But
Yeah.
no, people are definitely allowed to ask questions in the chat, and we'll try and get through some of your questions if you've
Yeah,
got
yeah,
them
absolutely.
as well. Yeah. So if you've got any questions, like whatever they are, go for it. I did see one question which I'm not sure you'll be massively happy with, but a few people were
Yeah.
saying about um, do you think there's any? This is what in terms of like players Man United are looking to offload. I can't remember who it
Mhm.
was now, but it's like Rashford, Agate. Can you see any of these deals? Can you see any of these players ever going to Newcastle in terms of like helping us get a player like Tonali or another player as like as a sort of not a swap deal, but like a player plus cash? Or do you think that would not happen?
I'm just looking through your squad. So the whole thing about Rashford is a lie. We cannot afford a player. We can afford it if you obviously are owners, but we're just not allowed under the current rules to get a player that's on 350k
Yeah, I
a
was going
week.
to say that. Someone asked me that question yesterday, and I said I was pretty sure I spoke to you about it months ago, and you were saying wage structure, not a chance it's going to happen. You seem to prefer younger players as well. It's not necessarily exactly the Chelsea model, but it's like Man United are doing the same sort of thing. We're trying to also be mindful of our wage structure, and that seems to be going quite well so far.
Yeah, I'm just looking for your team as well. And this is no kind of the only player I would have gone for is there's the one that you'll never let go, and that's Kobe Mainoo. Um, and so no, essentially no, there isn't a player that I would take at the moment from Man United. The only one would be Kobe Mainoo.
It's a perfect Gordon replacement. To be honest, like this is Barcelona's fault. Like Rashford was there. Rashford was like begging to stay, and unfortunately for Rashford, I think his salary might have been a factor in that one. And I know he's prepared to lower his salary, but he might have had to lower it massively to get that deal over the line
I
as well.
think I think also Gordon has been not just by rival fans but by Newcastle fans as well, hugely underestimated in terms of his ability. He ranks in the top three for wingers, especially for a lot of stats on and off the ball. He's got the unique quality of not only having what you call, and I learned this phrase the other day, long, is it called long? Something to do, basically meaning you can run at the highest speed for very long distances, right? And from standing starts, as well as being able to have good ball manipulation in central areas, playing a nine, and obviously really, really good at pressing, super, super, super good at pressing. That's really important if you want to protect your central areas as well. And the amount of sprints he's able to cover, I think it's more on Rashford. He's had the, how do you say, he's been able to show his skills in live action for the past year, and Barcelona still preferred Gordon over him. So that lets you know where Rashford is at. I
I remember
am
talking to you actually. Do you remember when we were talking maybe about might have been like a season review? And you were saying, I wish we had someone like a Bruno Fernandes because Gordon makes great runs. You've got Alanga making
yes,
good runs, and you're
yes,
looking at it and saying, because I came back to Man United fans on my channel, and I was saying because Bruno was getting a lot of stick at one point of the season, and I
yeah.
was saying that you were kind of thinking if only we could get the ball forward quicker, and then Man United fans were saying if only Bruno would take more time, and I was just thinking. And they say, if only Bruno could be more careful with the ball. And I was thinking, but that's exactly what Philip wants. Philip wants someone that's going to be making decisions rapidly, and I think that's what Bruno does. And when I've been speaking to a few people about Gordon, yourself included, it's making me think actually I'd be genuinely interested to see how well Gordon would do in a Man United team because I can see that that's why they were looking at him as well. I think that kind of ability to run at top speed constantly, like you said, like for a prolonged amount of time, that's something that a lot of people don't do. A lot of people have a very short-term burst of speed, but I think we used to see it with Garnacho. He'd start off and then he'd just get caught. He couldn't maintain it, and
Well, you had
that's
Ryan
kind of
Giggs. People forgot Ryan Giggs. Like live in action. Like, do you guys remember that? Man United fans, I remember Ryan Giggs. You had the
I saw him
I
live,
mean,
and I was just like amazed by when you watch it on TV and think when in real life. it's ridiculous how athletic, but also how his control and touch was at speed was
Exactly.
breathtaking.
Exactly. Exactly. I don't know if you remember, even from this year, when you guys played us at our ground, when he won the penalty, he nicked the ball of Casemiro in the central area and he drove with the ball from the halfway line into the penalty box at speed. Right? There's a reason why he got that penalty. They were scared. I don't know how to emphasize it. It's very rare for a player to be able to do that. It doesn't happen week in, week out. And only certain players are able to do that. If you're Hansi Flick, you're watching that, you're thinking a player like that is going to could destroy the La Liga. And so that's why he's there. So yeah, I think you've heard, for instance, I've heard, our own legend, and big up to him, Alan Shearer, say for instance, he's not going to get into Bayern Munich's team, and what's he going to do? Like, yeah, I feel like it's a little bit maybe out of maybe bitterness, or I don't know, maybe he really feels that, but I think Gordon's going to surprise a lot of people for what he's able to. I actually think Arsenal should have got him instead of Rodgers. Instead of going for Rodgers, I think Arsenal don't have a player like that. I think if Arsenal got a player that can expand the play like that, they'll look like a totally different animal.
Yeah, I remember like years ago when we had Marcus Rashford, and I was watching Arsenal running a low block against City when they got a man sent off, and I was thinking they've literally got no threat on the pitch. They need an
Mhm.
outlet. They need someone with pace. It's one thing that Arsenal haven't got. I think Arsenal, like I was watching the final against PSG and thinking, like this would be the sort of game where Man United would be brilliant because we're so good on the counter attack. And I was thinking
Yeah.
Arsenal, they just don't have that kind of killer counter-attack move. And
Hmm.
I think like you got
Hmm.
Joker. And I think it was just like I wanted Arsenal to lose, so I didn't mind. But I was thinking from an Arsenal from an Arsenal perspective, though, I'd be so frustrated, like really frustrated. Can I ask you a question about? Because I know you're very good at scouting and you got lots of reports you've done on players. Do you have any thoughts on Alex Scott? Because he has been one player that's Man United have started talking to, and I'm wondering whether Manchester United are considering a move for him, like not him instead of Tonali, but I'm just wondering overall, are they looking at him as well, thinking this is another player we could develop? Because I remember looking at a bit of information I saw this morning, and he is incredibly good at a lot of things. I think winning the ball
Hmm.
back is another thing he's very good at. Is again, he fits the profile of Man United signings recently or linked players where he's very mobile. Yeah, and also I think it goes under the radar a little bit because you had a team where I'll be honest, when I watched Bournemouth, I watched the menu at the start of the season. That's kind of what I noticed. But Alex Scott, I think, went under the radar a little bit. Do you have any thoughts on him?
As soon as you said his name, I said to myself, again, Man United are doing it again. They're looking at the right players, which is annoying, really, really annoying because I'll put him close to maybe just a tad below Mateus Fernandes. Again, playing in a very successful Bournemouth team, as you guys know, he's their tempo setter. So you can imagine a team like Bournemouth who are known for high intensity, man to man, chaos where they can do it. He's the one that controls their tempo, can slow the game down when they need to, and quicken it up when they need to as well. So you can see that Man United are trying to create a situation where you can not only you can create the chaos when you want to, and you can also diffuse or slow it down when you want to. If you have a Mateus Fernandez and Alex Scott in your double pivot, you're in very, very good hands in terms of being able to control the ball, control games, but also have players that have excellent passing ranges. If you listen to Alex Scott's interview, he himself says I can do a lot of things. He prefers to play a little bit more advanced. He says it himself. I want to play in an 8 a little bit more advanced because he's very, very good at that too. And you can imagine him and Mateus Fernandez kind of changing between themselves. But again, if you do that 4-2-3-1, Mateus Fernandez and Alex Scott, you're probably looking at maybe 120 for both of those players. I think that'll be one of the most successful transfer windows of this summer. Phenomenal player, really, really good player, can do a lot of things. And again, played for a very good manager as well. I'll be personally again another player. I'll be very jealous that you forgot him. Very jealous.
Yeah. this is kind of why I've been quite optimistic. I know a lot of Manchester United fans were messaging me in the comments maybe like a week ago, and they're going, right now, where are these deals? Man United are talking, etc., etc. And I think because the first deal was Edison, and Edison's probably, well, I think Edison's a decent signing, but obviously he's not the same level of excitement generated by some of the players we just talked about.
Yeah.
And I think with this one, Alex Scott for me was another player where when I saw him, I was actually thinking I quite like that idea. Alex Scott, Matheus Fernandes, Kobe Mainu, and Edison brings a bit of experience to that mix as well. I was actually genuinely excited and thinking that when people are saying, how's this going to fit in? I was going, I don't know how it's all going to fit together. And I was thinking that it may not be like an obvious first choice pairing because it just might be that things work not how we're expecting, and maybe Michael Carrick's got ideas that we don't 100% know either. So I was kind of open minded about this one. I'm going to go for a few questions. People have got some questions in for this one.
Yeah.
Rob's got a question
That's it.
about, are you confident Newcastle will replace outgoings? And Sebastian has got a
Mhm.
question saying, why was Burns selected for England ahead of Maguire? I mean, I don't know if you've spoken to Tuchel about it, but Man United fans were, to be honest, he gets a rest, which is a good thing. But it was surprising that he didn't get into the team after his. I thought he played well this season.
Yeah. So in terms of outgoings, I'm always confident in our ability to identify players, player ID. That part we're very, very good at. There's a reason why so many teams want so many of our players, even though our own fans, you probably hear it a lot. Don't let Eddie Howe pick the players, and yet, and yet, we've just talked about how many players already. I think Eddie Howe and his recruitment team have done a very, very good job identifying good players. The
Are
problem
you
in the
happy with
part,
anyhow? Because I haven't really asked you about
yeah.
that one. But I do hear a few rumblings of like some fans are not happy, some are.
Mm.
It wasn't a great season in the Premier League. I think that might be a reason why.
Yeah, yeah. No, I am happy, and I'll kind of expand on it. I just wanted to say that, yeah. So I'm very confident in our ability to identify players. If you ask me in the past, I'll be a bit worried about us executing and getting those deals over the line. Hopefully, that changes this summer transfer window. That's the part I'm looking to kind of to find out, to kind of hopefully confirm. Eddie Howe, he's had a very difficult season. Had a better season in the cup competitions. We reached the last 16 of the Champions League, something that we've never done in our history, and again another semi-final in the League Cup. But obviously, the Premier League has not been good. A lot of that, for me, in my opinion, apart from yes, there's issues that Eddie Howe could have changed his tactics in certain games, but I think the overwhelming problem was the appalling transfer window that we had, and subsequent injuries on top of that. So I say that to say this: when people say, "Yeah, but lots of teams go through that," I think every club and every fan base has got to kind of assess it uniquely to their team. If there's injuries or there isn't the right players, and then there's the manager, which one apportions the most, which is the most to blame for these things? And in my view, and from covering the team, Eddie Howe, or despite his faults, it's the other issues that we've had that were the bigger problems. And when you keep on hearing stories like Eddie Howe told the PIF, sell Isak in July, and they didn't listen to him. And that led to a situation where we missed out on literally 4 or 5 strikers before we went on whistle and Voltemada. What can you? How much can you blame on the manager when Eddie Howe identified Sheshko, he identified Ekatike, he identified João Pedro, and you still took 3 months to get those players over the line? How much can you continue blaming Eddie Howe for those type of things? So hopefully this year things are a little bit different. I think you also have to remember Eddie Howe got us to multiple Champions League qualifications, rescued us from relegation, got us a cup. So he hasn't turned into a bad manager in just one season like that. There are kind of reasons for that. So that doesn't mean that he gets a free pass or by any means, but I think he's still the man for Newcastle. Absolutely. Sorry, I forgot what the follow-up question was. Is it Burnham
Follow-up
Maguire or
question
something
was,
like that?
I think a follow-up question that people are going like, how is Burn in front of Harry Maguire, and why is he playing in front of Hall? Is a question from Debasis. But I think that, to be honest, actually, there's a few interesting selections in Tuchel's squad. So England better bring it home, or there's going to be a lot of people wondering why he selected certain players. But what's your thoughts on that one?
So is it Eddie? How can Eddie Howe play Burn in front of Hall or Tuchel? Is that
Just,
Eddie,
but I
or
think
is it both?
why is Burn in the World Cup and Harry Maguire sat at home resting, ready for next season? That's my
Yeah,
positive spin.
look, you can also ask why is Wharton sitting at home and what's the other fella from Liverpool but now played for Ajax? I forgot his name. Henderson. Why is Henderson there and Wharton isn't?
Yeah, that's
you
a
know,
strange
it's,
one.
it's you know the crazy decisions like that. So I think it's the same situation. I think why Eddie Howe sometimes plays Burn. You have to remember Lewis Hall has played 41 games this season. He's for the when it comes to under 21s, he's the second behind Nico O'Reilly in terms of minutes played for under 21s this season. So it's not that Eddie Howe is choosing Burn over Hall. It's that Hall needs rest. This is the most amount of minutes he's ever played at 21 years old. He needs rest. And if you know a little bit about his injury history, you know why Eddie Howe protects him a little bit in terms of that. And it was for his own good. I think Lewis Hall, and the thing, this is where I blame our own fan base because we're quickly becoming the worst at this, where they're now blaming Eddie Howe for Lewis Hall not going into the World Cup, which is insane because look at Burn, look at Gordon, look at Tino Livramento. Tino Livramento, again, he played less games than Hall, is going to the World Cup. You have to ask Tuchel about that. I don't understand it. It is insane to me why he would do that. You have to ask him about that because I don't know. I think again this year, again with all respect to Man United, but Newcastle have more players than Man United in the England squad. So this whole narrative that people are forming up now, he wants to leave Newcastle to play Man United so he can get into England. He's fine. He could get into England if he plays for Newcastle. That's proven. So I don't think that's the issue for him at the moment. I think the conversations is with Tuchel.
Yeah,
I
think, to be honest,
that,
what I would say is
yeah.
that Luke Shaw played every single game for Manchester United. We have no European football. It's a different, it's a completely different workload. And I was I've been saying to people that I would love to sign Lewis Hall, and people people can make jokes about Luke Shaw and how many games he's going to play, but it doesn't matter how many games he can play. There's no way Luke Shaw's going to be playing like 3 games in 8 days or
No. Yeah.
twice a week. And for me, it's like even like Lewis Hall wouldn't if Man United signed Lewis Hall and people are saying get rid of Luke Shaw, I wouldn't be getting rid of Luke Shaw either.
That's insane.
I'd be
Yeah.
looking at Luke Shaw as being a really good for me it'd be perfect because you've got someone with loads of experience, you've got someone that is learning aspects of the game, and I think it'd be great for Man United because also there's so many games. We could go from playing 40 games to playing 55 quite easily, and it could
Yes.
be with short recovery time. I think that's the thing with Newcastle. Like, it's one of the things that people look at and go, every single team will not be your best players or your best team because it's a squad game now. There's too many games in a short amount of time. So I think the media loves to push a narrative, don't they, that involves negativity, and it kind of like makes people talk about it. Because to be honest, when I was looking at it, I looked at how many games he played for England. I think he's only played a few times for England anyway. So it's not like he was a regular fixture. So I think the narrative there is he's going to play for England in the future. He's only young. He's got loads of time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
One comment here says, help the loser says, Maguire will be called to join the England squad in the middle of the World Cup. I don't know if that's the case. To be honest, I don't mind Maguire not going. I think Maguire's had a very good season, but it might be that whatever Tuchel wants to do, like no, Tuchel knows what his plan is more than we do. The fact that it's not always the best team isn't always the individually the best players. It might be that
Yeah.
what he wants to do doesn't suit Maguire. So I don't mind Maguire resting and sitting this one out. I think Maguire obviously minds, his mum obviously minds, but as fans,
But also, I think, look, as England fans have always blamed, and rightly so, former England managers for picking popular players despite, them not playing. Palmer's not going, Foden's not going. And if you're looking at form and what they've done this season, it's probably the right decision. Like at the end of the day, Morgan Rogers should be ahead of them for what he's achieved this season. Whereas in the past, remember Sven-Goran Eriksson, Morgan Rogers could play. He's played 4,500 minutes this season. His team have finished fourth in the league, and they won the Europa, and he's been absolutely integral to that. Under some of the former England managers that we've had, he still wouldn't get in front of a Foden and Palmer into the England squad. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And sometimes you're going to get managers that aren't going to make. Regardless of all that, I still don't understand how Henderson gets into the squad. I can see a
that's a strange one, isn't it? There's always one or two that don't make sense. I remember when we had who was a 16-year-old that played for Arsenal, and I couldn't remember why he went.
Walcott.
Well, it felt like he went there just for a holiday because he wasn't going to play, and I don't know why he went.
It made news. And,
maybe it detracted a bit of attention from people. Good question from Rob, actually. And who would be your biggest loss?
Bruno.
It took you what? It didn't take you very long to think about that one. So, take home message: we should go for Bruno. Now, I think this isn't my opinion 100%, but I think Manchester United got a certain age where they don't go above. I'm not sure exactly where the cutoff is. I think the oldest players we signed in the last couple of years are probably Mazraoui and maybe Edison, actually, and that's not that old, is it? That's like 26. So I don't think we're going to go beyond that. I mean, how old is Bruno at the moment?
28.
28. So it seems crazy, doesn't it? Like Ryan Giggs was playing like centre midfield when he was like 39.
Yeah.
And people, it is. I do find it quite funny when people. Has Bruno had a few injury issues that maybe could be a factor?
He's solid. He had a hamstring injury, but that's the first time he's been out for us. Typically, he plays 40, 50 games for us. This is the first time. It's a bit like Bruno Fernandes for you guys. Like I think it was this year he had his first hamstring injury. I think it was against us. I can't remember. But typically he's super robust. And as always, when he's not playing, Newcastle have a downturn in form.
And I remember actually, I might have spoken to you on, and maybe it's your channel, or it might have been some people in the chat on your channel, and the take-home message was pretty much like Bruno Guimaraes is like Roy Keane, and I don't mean the same sort of player. It is kind of like the heartbeat of your team, the person that drives the team on, and the one where, if you watch Roy Keane when he was at his prime, he was basically the person that, kind of like made Man United tick. Was like basically just he was one of the player that you probably missed the most in terms of like when he's not available. So I was thinking like he's not going to go. And I don't think he's not going to want to leave either, is he? I understand.
He was close to leaving for like Man City. I think he'll be open to like options, but he's not gonna like push and do an Isak. He knows how important he is to the team. He nearly went to City. Was it last season? The season before that, but it didn't materialize for him. He's a player that honestly believes in the project, and so he's very, very important for us. Absolutely.
Omar said, I know you're obviously a Newcastle fan. If you were impartial and just rating these players in terms of like best options, some of the people have been talking about in terms of options. So you got Trafford, you got Lewis Hall. You got Diouf at West Ham, who's just been relegated, so he might well be leaving the club. And maybe Kadioglu, who I quite like. He's quite versatile as well. Do you think that, like, looking at all these players, actually, Lewis Hall is going to be definitely the most expensive? Do you think he would be the best option for Man United? Because it would mean we have to spend possibly, like, it might be close to record money for a left back. And it's a lot of people do actually look and go, we could get this guy cheaper, but do you think Lewis Hall's worth the extra?
Do I think Lewis Hall? It depends how much extra, isn't it? I think in my opinion, Lewis Hall in his age group is probably one of the top 2, top 3 in his age group in the Premier League. On and off the ball, close control, can invert as well. Playmaking. If you look at how many touches he has on the ball, he typically for us it's between him and Bruno, who have the most touches on the ball for us, which shows you again who dictates the play for us, who we rely on to control possession for us. It's Hall and players like that. So it depends on what you want. I haven't seen enough of Truthert, so I can't comment on him too much. Talented boy, plays in that Bournemouth system, but I think where you have to be a little bit careful with Bournemouth players in general is there's a suspicion that they're a little bit more system based to what happens in Bournemouth and how does that translate to when they play for other teams. So for instance, Zabani left to go to PSG. PSG are already looking to sell him. I think Dean Huijsen is having a little bit of a difficult time as well. So it depends on essentially what happens there. You have to kind of think about is what happens there going to translate? I know Kirk has had a difficult time at Liverpool as well.
Do you know what I was going to say, Philip? I was thinking exactly the same thing. You know, when you have someone like Ajax and you have a really good team that got to the Champions League semi-final, apart from Frankie de Jong, most of those players left to go to different clubs and never really did as well. And I was thinking the same sort of thing. I look at Bournemouth as a very well organized team, and this is kind of something that's been the case for years. So I was kind of thinking something similar, where when we're looking at certain players in that team, I just think, will they ever look quite as good? And I was thinking the same with like Houston and Kirkez, and having the same suspicions that I think it's just almost like they're not necessarily the same issue as Ajax, but when you think he works amazingly in that team, and the Bournemouth team has just been so well organised over years. I'm just thinking if you take those players out and you want them to do different things, possibly with playing a different team, they're still very good players, but I think there is always going to be that kind of like mindset that maybe it's not the optimal deal. Debasa says Hall's going to be like 60 to 70 million pounds. Do you know what I would say? That for me as a fan, if Manchester United were going to buy a left back, I would go for Alex Scott instead of Tonali and Lewis Hall pay the money. Because I think if you can get a player that good that's 21, I think it's just for me, it's like a no-brainer. I think what Man United want to do is like having a left back with the quality of Hall, with like say Cunha cutting in a bit, Lewis Hall overlapping. I think it could be like a game changer for how Michael Carrick wants to play, and I think that would be an excellent signing for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I always say compared, whether he'll be 60 or 70, be like compared to whom? Like, whatever players on kind of his age and profile you're going to get. And what are they costing? And is it better for you to get? If you're making smarter moves like Mateus Fernandes instead of 80, 90 million pound Anderson or slightly older Bruno Gomes, I suspect that not that Man United aren't serious. I think they are serious about these players, but I think the likes of big flashy names like Bruno and Tonali are almost like what do you call it? What's the word? Not misdirection necessarily, but like I think you look at it and say, yeah, okay, but Mateus Fernandes and Alex Scott probably make better sense, and certainly are more value for money for the future. With Hall, it's slightly different because he's got a higher profile and what he's been able to achieve. I think what you've got to be mindful of is, and this is what Newcastle will be mindful of, is so his contract, he'll be down to 2 years next year. And that's when you're going to get Barcelona, PSG, and all the rest of them. So I think what Newcastle are saying is if you're going to go for him now, you better kind of pay a certain amount of money now to avoid all of that. And also get it in before Tino Livramento goes. So, and I think that's what Man United have got to weigh up. And if you've got too many other positions to fill, at this moment in time, it just might be a place where maybe he is beyond your budget at the moment because, like I said, I don't expect him to be like doing the Isak or pushing for a move. But at the same time, I'm not going to rule that out because I've experienced it. Um, but
How
that,
much do you
you
think?
know,
How much do you think Newcastle would deem an acceptable offer? Because I saw a couple of people in the comments. Irish Pit Terrier is Danny. Danny says 50 to 55 million. He thinks would get Hall. Somebody else said 60 to 70. So that's quite a big range. I was going to say that 50's got to be like a minimum. I was thinking in terms of this deal that Newcastle don't need to sell. I would be, and I'm not going to say it's Man United taxed. I think it's going to be market value. You're going to be looking at decent money because the transfer market at the moment is difficult to predict. But I remember last year when Gittins went for 60, Alanga was 60, and I was thinking, wow, I'm glad we got Cunha and Mbeumo done because prices were going to spiral out of control. So I don't know. Do you think 60, 65, or like 55? What's your obviously this is a bit of a guess, but what would be your gut feeling?
I'm just trying to think of the other left backs that would be in and around him. I don't want to. You've heard reports of 55 and 60, but Newcastle are so reluctant to sell him, and this is I know that I've said that we're open, that we're like, we'll be open to. We're not like holding, being accused of holding players for ransom this season, but he's not. He's not the player that we're looking to sell. I think, yeah, if you were going to do it, I think the prices that have been banded around at the moment is between 55 to 60. You have to remember we've got him for 30 million as well. So possibly in and around that price range. But I'm trying to think in my head what other left backs of his age and quality are around at the moment, and kind of to understand if it's market value of where it's at. But I think Newcastle aren't looking necessarily to sell him at market value. I think they're looking to sell him above it because they really don't want to sell him.
Yeah, no, I would just say for that one, for Man United, I think it's worth spending that money because we bought Tellez, we bought Malacia, and we've done these deals where we tried to get a bargain, and I just think just buy with the best quality available player out there, and for me it'd be sensible. Um, who are Newcastle going to get to replace Gordon? Says Andy. That's a good question, actually. Any thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. No, I've been doing lots of posts about potential replacements for Newcastle. They've been looking at uh, a player called Abdi Azuli from Real Betis. They've been again linked to another young player today called Victor. What's his surname? Victor Muniz from Osasuna. Lots of really young players. The player I really, really like to get them is another Mateus Fernandes Pardo from Lille. Very exciting player, kind of the same mold-ish of Gordon. Powerful runner, strong, incredible. I think he's a little bit better in terms of dribbling, just a little bit maybe. High intensity player, good in the finish, can invert, can play across the front three. I'd love for Newcastle to get a player like that. If we can, that'll be a really, really good kind of find for us. But yeah, lots of lots of players that we're linked to in terms of that. But I really, really want Mateus Fernandes Pardo if we can.
Yeah, Andy's asking, is Burn a better player? But I think answer to your question with like Lewis Hall, Andy, I think it was just a case of like squad rotation and lots of games coming up. I can't remember which games was Lewis Hall actually dropped for then. Is this Premier League games towards the end of the season? Is that the
So he was dropped.
one?
There's a whole meal tape. I don't know if it's taken. He was dropped. He had a bad half against Bournemouth, and he was subbed at half time. Rayan burnt him, and was able to get the ball across, and so he was subbed at half time, and he didn't play for a couple of games after that. So there was a whole lot of media stuff around that in terms of they've fallen out, this, that, and the other, and that's why he's not playing for England. All these type of situations. So I don't think it's over that. And like I said, we just came off a Champions League campaign at the time. He was tired. He was clearly tired. And I think Eddie Howe was looking after him. Maybe there's a bit of maybe Hall didn't necessarily appreciate getting hooked at half time, but that's what happens to sometimes. I'm sure he'll get over it. So that's when it started. That's when the situation started where he was being rotated for Bern.
I saw this comment, and I think I might have said this to a couple of people in your live chat, maybe a few weeks ago, because it was actually a story posted somewhere. And when they say sweeten the deal, Samuel, I don't think Agati is going to sweeten any deal, to be honest.
Yeah,
It
sweet
should
and
be like,
Agate.
we'll send you Agati unless you sell him at a sensible price. I've seen actually people are asking where would Agati go. And my question is going to be, it can't be a Premier League team that he can't. He doesn't work in the Premier League. I think it's just a bit too fast paced. I think Man United's best bet might be that he has an okay World Cup. I think he might be destined for potentially Serie A, but potentially maybe it's Galatasaray. There's a few Turkish teams interested, so that could be not a bad move. It could help us a bit, I think, regarding that one. For people watching, we're live for like another 15 minutes. So if you've got some questions in, and there is a link to Philip's channel in the video description as well. Philip's a very knowledgeable Newcastle fan. So I'm trying to be like, I know sometimes when we do streams on my channel, we're pretty much it feels like we're basically looking at all the teams in the Premier League as just like opportunities to steal the best players, but that's not going to be, that's not quite how transfers work. The other teams are not there to help us out. We have to keep saying.
Well, you're in the Champions League. You've got a big name, huge name, probably biggest name in the Premier League at the moment. The momentum is going your way, so you're right to feel confident that you can. We've
got to try and feel confident. I've got a specific question for you, Philip.
Yeah.
That I think is going to be, and real subscribe to you. Yeah, definitely check out Philip. He's a good guy. Posts some really, really intelligent conversations on his channel as well. Good stuff there. So looking at this one, then Manchester United about a year ago, this is coming from the owners now. We obviously let a lot of players go last season. I think about 10 left the club. We only brought 4 players in. So what we saw was a reduction in the numbers in our squad. And the owners at the time were saying, look, we haven't got Champions League games, we haven't got European football, so we can get by with a smaller squad. I was thinking from a Newcastle perspective, you probably didn't have a massive squad anyway, in terms of where Newcastle have been over the last few years and you were building it up. Do you think that's going to maybe take the pressure off for one season where you don't have the Champions League games? Because it is it's a lot of fixtures now, isn't it? It's must have been an extra 10 or 12 games for you guys.
Yeah, it was an extra. If you got, we played 58 games, I think 55 to 58 games. So that's an extra 20 games, something along those lines for us. But it's good. It's good because that means you're doing well, right? Is it going to take off the pressure? In terms of, you can say yes. Obviously, you can build a squad. You could have more time on the training ground. What I think it hopefully will do for us is give us that breathing space, because we've now experienced the last 3 or 4 years, multiple Champions Leagues, multiple games. If we haven't learned what happens if you don't make the right decisions in your recruitment, in the players and everything else, I don't know what else to say for us. So if anything, I'm just hoping that they use the time and space they got a little bit here in this season to be able to mold the team a little bit better. I think we're doing that. And what I think we're going to do is get a lot of emerging talent. So like a MATEUS FERNANDES before he's a MATEUS FERNANDES type of players, and mold that into the next season. So we're going to get about 6 to 8 players this season. Now, from a transfer point of view and the content creator point of view, that's exciting because you've got a lot of players. But if you're looking at a well-run club, if your club is buying 6 to 8 players every summer, that's not good. That means that your squad isn't right. But if you can get to the point where we're kind of getting one or two players every other transfer window, it means you're growing the squad, you're doing well, and that's the point that we want to get to essentially. So I'm just hoping that we learn more from that. We develop the squad, we develop those youngsters, and the next time we get into the Champions League, hopefully next year, we follow that up by getting to the Champions League the second year. And then I can come on this channel and you can kind of say to me, you're expected to get into the Champions League, Phil, because you've got a really good squad. I'm
That's
like,
the thing for
yeah.
Man United, that I think the aim for Man United next season is clearly you got to. This can't be a one-off. You've got to make sure that Man United get to Champions League with regularity, because that's how you build the revenue streams
Yeah,
that allow you to compete and for the best players.
yeah.
But also, players will look at it, won't they, and think, right, if teams like yo-yoing up and down the league every other year, it's not going to have the same pull as a City or Arsenal have been over the last 4 or 5 years, where you're
Hmm.
regularly in a
Hmm.
title race. So I think with Man United, it's very. I do think we're building a very sustainable team in terms of, like, we're going for the right age profile players that, like I said,
Hmm.
it's really good to get you on because you're quite knowledgeable about the younger players as well. And so you're looking past like where they're playing, looking at the skill sets they've got. And the fact you see a young Bruno Guimaraes in terms of like MATEUS Fernandes is, pretty. For me, it shows we're looking in the right direction. I also
Hmm.
look at some of the players we're signing where they're being linked to all the top clubs as well. So I think it's reassuring that, if we're linked to a player, and we got Euro because we probably paid a lot of money for Euro because we wanted to make sure we
Hmm.
got him from instead of Real Madrid. And when you're starting to do those sort of deals, I start thinking we're looking in the right direction. So I'm actually
Hmm.
quite happy with what's happening. Andy says, "Are you happy with Walter Maida?" I'm not sure I would spell it either, to be honest. I was thinking
W.
we were looking at.
W.
I did streams last year where we looked at Ekatike, we looked at Sesko, Gyökeres. I think Walter Maida we talked about, but yeah, are you happy with him overall? Because I think at one point of the season he was doing quite well. Maybe towards the end it was dropping off a little bit.
I'm going to copy a quote from one of our Newcastle United journalists, Craig Hope, and credit to him because he was saying this when Baltimore was scoring lots of goals and doing well. And what he said was that Baltimore is a unique player with a very unique skill set. However, he is the missing piece to another team's puzzle. And what it means is that Newcastle United, from if you look at Isak, for example, and the fact that we went for Ekatike and Sheshko, it lets you know the profile of strikers that we look at. Tall, athletic, strong, can link up play, can run in behind, can hold off, got really good offensive duels, and obviously, can get into the box and have good movement in the box. Unfortunately, Voldemar, despite the goals he scored, he doesn't have that in his locker. Movement in the box, he's too soft, I think, in personality and in physicality. And when he does drop deep and link up play, there's some decent flashes, but he's not as good in the press and he's out of pace of the game. I just don't think he's a Premier League player. And that's not me saying he's like a bad level of player. He just doesn't suit this league. Um, and it doesn't suit the way Newcastle United play. I typically like to give players 2 seasons before I make up my mind on them. Um, I'll be open to Voldemar for that. But at the same time, if I hear that Bayern Munich are interested in a loan, I would, I'll be open to it.
Given your
Essentially.
interest in Sesko, how do you think Sesko's got on? Because I spoke to a couple of fans yesterday, and it's kind of mixed. I think people appreciate that he's done. He's had to play for 3 different managers. He's had to work under a couple of different ideas in terms of where to play, how our team's set up, and
Mm.
he has been. He's come off the bench quite a bit as well. So a lot of people think, actually, first season, I think he's done quite well, and there are a few people that do think, is he going to be better off the bench? Do we need to look at getting another striker in? I mean, what's your assessment? I'm quite patient, so I think season one, I do actually quite like the quality of his finishing. He does seem to be the things I like. Actually, he's good in the air. Obviously, he's very very tall, but I think it's the quality of his finishing back to goal. And I just think he reminds me of, I'm just trying to think, he doesn't have to, he's strong, but he doesn't have to use his physicality loads. He's got quite good awareness in terms of where the goal is, and he gets his shots off quite quickly. Range of finishing, I've been quite impressed by. I think it's a work in progress for sure. And I think as the season's gone on, he's kind of built up a relationship with Bruno Fernandes, who does put the ball in early. So Sesko needs to make those runs rapidly. I think that's kind of the understanding he's been getting to. But I think it's going to be one where I think next season we could see him kick on a bit.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I was jealous when you guys got him. He would have suited our play style really, really well. Um, there's a partly of a reason why the likes of Elanga isn't doing so well, and there is the individuals. But Elanga, for instance, was bought to support a player like an Isak stroke Sheshko profile type, someone who can run in behind and get into the end of those crosses, which Voltemada can't do. And I think Sheshko would have done us really, really well. I also would say, I'm like you, I like to give players time. I think he's had what I've just looked at the thing. He's got 12 goals, 1 assist. He played 1,600 minutes overall. I think that's a good return for a player that's played that amount of minutes. I think you also have to bear in mind not just his age, but he's come from Germany, the German league, and you know, traditionally, I would say it typically takes German players a little bit of time, or German-based players from the Premier League, from the Bundesliga to settle in, if at all they ever settle in. So
I think that's fair, isn't it? Because I remember
yeah,
also he played with another striker. So if you looked at his heat map, he was in wide areas quite a lot last year. So
yeah.
he has had to change the way he plays as well. So I think he's done well, given all those reasons, all those different things he's had to overcome. I think it's been quite positive.
If you can imagine, for us, we just spoke about Gordon, we would have had Gordon and Sheshko up front. Now then you got a whole different type of proposition there: pace, power, press. So that's how we was going to look to use him. I think you're building towards a 4-2-3-1 kind of style. I think with the likes of Mateus behind and Alex Scott behind, I think you could also potentially unleash him even more. So yeah, I'll be patient with him. I think he's had a decent start to the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, just people that just tuned in. Good to see you, Russ. Welcome to the chat. We're all going to wrap up in a few minutes at 10 p.m. So if you've got any questions, please get them in. Russ is an Arsenal fan, so I mean, hopefully, maybe
Big
there's
up,
some
Russ.
links. Do you think if I was going to ask you a quick question about Tonali,
Mhm.
do you think that he leaves the club, or do you think he stays? Like, because I think from Tonali's point of view, it seems like he wants to go. If Man United don't pay the money, do you think like Arsenal or another club, do you think there's going to be a deal happening somewhere else for him?
It's funny. The more I've had to talk to you the show, the least I think he's going to go. And is there a market for Tonali? Is what I would say, because you know we just talked about Man United, and you've gone from Mateus
Yeah,
Fernandez and Alex Scott of better
that's what I'm
profile.
thinking.
Not,
That
yeah.
Tonali's is that's kind of my point as well. Is that if you can get MATEUS FERNANDES for 55, 60, you can get Alex Scott for 55. That Yeah, is there a market for him? Like, I don't know. Do Arsenal want him, or does he want Arsenal? I think he wants out. I remember his agent and Arsenal links in January. So that was kind of my question, because I don't really monitor Arsenal's transfer business unless it interferes with what we want to do that way.
Would
But
Newcastle sell both their players to Arsenal? I don't think so. I don't think we want to sell. I don't think we want to strengthen our rivals that much. And what I mean is Tino Livramento, I think, is ahead of the queue for Arsenal, because they're looking for another right back, and I think Tino's very, very strongly linked from our perspective. And I'll be a bit shocked that Newcastle sell two players to one Premier League team, just like that. I'll be a little bit surprised by that. Um, so no, I don't see us doing that. I don't see us doing that.
so I was just thinking that is it going to be a problem if you don't sell Tonali? Like, is Tonali going to be not doing an Isak, or if he wants to leave? is it going to cause problems if you put a valuation of 100 million on? Do you remember the Gyökeres tantrums sort of thing where I think Gyökeres had a falling out because he thought there was a gentleman's agreement to make him cheaper, and so I don't know, because as a rival fan, I just think Tonali plus Declan Rice sounds a bit too good, like in the same team. I don't want to see it happening, but also I feel reassured that I'm not sure Arsenal will pay 100 million, so maybe we're okay.
Yeah, Arsenal are in a good space. They're kind of sprinkling stardust on their squad now. Um, I think they will pay big money in terms of different areas of the pitch. Will they do that in their midfield? Possibly. It depends if obviously Erdegaard stays, for instance, or Zubimendi stays. And like you said, Declan Rice and Tonali in that midfield could be very, very troublesome for people. I wouldn't put it past Arsenal doing it. Would they spend £100 million on him? I don't know. I find that difficult to see. I think the midfield market it's a little bit difficult to pin down at the moment because say MATEUS FERNANDES goes to Man United for 60 million. Well, you're not going to get Tonali for 60 million, are you? The price is going to go a little bit higher. If Nottingham Forest then sell Elliot Anderson for 70, 80 million to Man City, Tonali's price goes higher even more, right? So, and again, like I said, Tonali's contract is there. Look, we've been through the situation. We've had an Isak situation, and even in the early days where we had that whole thing, Bruno and Tonali being linked to Man United, and I think someone in Tonali's camp tried to float the idea of an agreement, and Newcastle very quickly shut that down, as opposed to how the whole Isak situation was about to run. I just don't think Tonali's in the same position as Isak to do that because of what we've done for Tonali. We've done a lot for Isak as well, but for Tonali to do this, if he's trying to win the public, it would be very difficult because I think both Man United fans or Arsenal fans or Newcastle fans would say, but he didn't play for a whole year because he went gambling and Newcastle held out for him. And this is how he repays them. You know, it's not as, I don't think it's not going to win the public that way, the same way maybe and Isak did in some quarters.
I think it's true as well, because as Man United fans, when we saw the Gyökeres fallout situation and the Isak fallout situation, as a fan, I was looking at the Mbeumo situation where Mbeumo said, if I don't go to Man United, I'm happy to stay with Brentford. But if I do leave Brentford, I want to go to Man United. And we were going, that's what you want, just calm,
Fair.
professional player. And I was just thinking, I don't want Gyökeres. So I think with Tonali, it is a factor, isn't it? I think Man United are looking for a certain mentality that's professionalism, like almost like boring, like Lamans. There's no drama, and I think the players we're signing, we're looking for professional players that want to come in for the right reasons. I know it sounds like a cliche, but we're just looking to try and get players that want to come to Man United to try and improve us as a club. And I think if Tonali's coming for the right reasons, or his reasons are useful to us as well, I think we'd look at him. I think a lot of people worry about certain players because they feel they're just using clubs as a stepping stone. I don't know enough about Tonali to suggest that's a factor. I don't think it is. But I know we're going to wrap up in a second, Philip. Is there anything you want to say before we finish? Like I said, there is a link to Philip's channel in the video description. I know Vril subscribed to you, but I'll say definitely check out Philip. And there is a possibility, I think I might be on Philip's channel in maybe early next week. And if it is, I'll share something on my channel for people to come and see, because it might be Manchester United content. It won't be all Newcastle. It'll be something else.
We're going to be, absolutely. Focusing on Man United and your season. Absolutely. And doing your kind of squad analysis. We did it. If folks are interested, we did a squad analysis and covered Aston Villa in our show on Tuesday. We looked at their finances. We looked at this as well, see how they're shaping up for the summer. We looked at their squad, analyzed their squad, their depth, tested their resilience in terms of handling the season, what they need to go forward. So I'll be doing something similar with Rich, and but with obviously Rich there, my analysis will be enriched with him there as well. So yeah, hopefully if that happens, we'll have him there. I just want to say from the outside looking in at Man United, I was looking at, I can't remember the player I was looking for. I was looking at his wages and capology, and somehow I stumbled across Man United's wage structure. And you guys have done an incredible job so far in cutting down the wage, and you look in very, very good shape. And the players that we've talked about this, and then we've also talked about the players today, your Alex Scotts, your MATEUS Fernandes. This is a very different Man United. I think rivals will be wrong to look at Man United as this is the same old Man United, that was under, Edwards and the situation that was there. I think rivals would be wrong about that and underestimating Man United in that type of sense. So I think people should look out for them, for you guys for sure. Yeah, but I absolutely enjoyed the show. I just noticed that I'm on 999 subscribers on my channel, so one away from 1,000. So I'm grateful to all the guys here that subscribe.
Come on, guys!
On the show
You
as
could be
well.
the one subscriber that gets Philip to 1K. That'd be quality. That'd be a nice thing. I was going to say for Man United as well. I think in terms of transfers and expectations, Manchester United fans have gone through 2 decades of Glazer ownership, and I remember actually years ago, I was on is it Toon Review? There's Newcastle channel's
Team
pretty big
review.
now, and I think I was on that channel about 4 years ago, and we're having a debate, and it was essentially like who's got the worst owners, because it was you guys before you got the takeover, and it was us with the Glazers, and it was kind of a bit of a draw at that point in time. But obviously, unfortunately, we still got the Glazers as owners. Luckily, we got kind of like a bit of a buffer zone with sensible people making decisions. But I think I'll say this: I think Manchester United are moving in a different direction, but it's going to take a bit of time for people to trust them. I don't trust the owners for sure. I don't
Of
trust Ineos,
course.
but I do trust Vivell, the scouts, and coaching staff, who I think are doing a really good job despite the weird the circumstances of the club. So I think we're going to be hopefully getting there. And always great to chat to you, Philip. And hopefully we'll do this
Likewise.
next Tuesday on your channel. And thanks everybody also for the questions as well. Lots of good questions
Amazing.
tonight. I
Amazing.
was saying actually to people, I'm going to get Philip on. So I mentioned it for a few days, and I said any questions you with Newcastle, get them in. And luckily, there was just endless stories about Newcastle stuff. But thank you, Philip.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Phenomenal chat, phenomenal channel.
And thanks everybody for getting involved. I'll be live tomorrow, quite early, depending on news. I'll probably have to check news and see what's happening. But it's Man United, so even if nothing's happened, there'll still be some stories. But thank you, Philip. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you guys tomorrow morning.